Alright, hello you sexy beasts and welcome back to the 1.65 dev server. Now we're going to take a look at the German tech tree. Sadly we do not get any new German tanks, although we had plenty of those in patch 1.63, but we get a couple of new interesting aircraft. First we see the introduction of a new Ju-88 C6. What makes this thing kind of different and really interesting is that it dishes some of the bomb loads by having a really quite crappy bomb load of 50 kilogram bombs. Let's be honest, 50 kilogram bombs are not very good. However, it gets offensive armament! Free 20mm cannons and free 7.92mm machine guns, on top of all the turrets, of course. So, if you find yourself in a situation where a Ju-88 is going head-on with you, you might want to think twice. The thing probably has more cannons than you. Now next up we have the HE-100, a new aircraft, yes. This is kind of an evolution of the HE-112, produced by Heinkel. Sadly it never saw service really. A couple of them were built to be used by the factory itself, as it seems, to defend the factory itself. But it was never really used in grand schemes. However, this thing is fast. If I'm not mistaken, this thing actually broke a speed record at its time, only to be surpassed by another aircraft very soon afterwards. But for a short time, this thing was the fastest aircraft in the world. And we can see that, despite only being a battle rating 1.7, although, let's be honest here, battle ratings in Warframe, at least especially on the dev server, don't really mean anything. But, since it only gets 7.92mm machine guns, this might very well be just about right, which would make this thing one of the fastest, if not the fastest, aircraft at its battle rating, even beating out a full up tier 2.7. Now of course, it's very fast, but it can't really use that speed, not offensively at least, given the crappy armament. Only 3 machine guns is less than desirable. Also, yes, once mounted through the engine itself. Now I do know there was a version planned at least with 220mm instead of the 7.92s mounted on the wings, but sadly we do not get that. So this might be a very interesting aircraft. This might be a very challenging aircraft to fly since, well, the guns are really crappy, but it's very fast. Next up we have a new player-made aircraft. Yes, we are seeing the introduction of the Ta-154. This is an interceptor slash heavy fighter, currently sitting at rank 3. It's probably going to stay at rank 3 since it's not quite as good as the HE-219, but it's again player made. Now don't be fooled by the icon on the stat card right now. I'm actually going to show you it in the hangar, because this thing is quite different from the HE-219. First of all, it gets a little bit less armament. Instead of the 430mm and the 220s that the HE-219 got, this thing only gets 2 MK108, which is the slow velocity German 30mm cannon, which also doesn't carry any AP shots, and 2 20mm MG151s. Sadly, and especially with the nerf to 30mm HE shells against medium tanks, this thing is not a ground attacker whatsoever. Where you could use the HE-219 very effectively as a ground attacker and get a lot of points that way, this thing is a pure fighter and bomber killer. Do not try to use this thing as a ground attacker. Now something cool I want to show you is an update to the X-ray model in the hangar. Now the models are all the same, but you get more information out of them. When you hover over some of the models, you now get more information. For example, the fuel tanks on this aircraft are self-sealing. We saw on the HE-100 earlier that the fuel tanks were not self-sealing. But not only that, we also get a look at the armament. For example, here we can see that this cannon is indeed the 30mm MK108s, that it has 110 shots and weighs 100 kilograms. It even displays some of the mass. But we also see a lot of information on the engines, and this is what I personally am most excited about, because it's going to be making my work just a little bit easier, trying to get the stats across to you guys. But now you can also see it yourself. So this one gets a Jumo 211F 12-cylinder engine inline with 1240 horsepower, with 1452 horsepower at takeoff, and a mass of 585 kilograms each. This is really quite interesting actually. But enough dabbling on. Sadly, I completely forgot how much this aircraft actually costs. But just keep in mind this thing is rank 3, battle rating around 4.0 projected, and doesn't have any armament capable of killing medium tanks. Pure attacker. But hey, let's take it out into the game and see what it does. Alright, we're in. Let's see. What is this map? Operation Uranus. There's a joke to be made there. But we're not going to make any jokes. Now, this thing does get an interceptor spawn, which is rather interesting indeed. Now, I have to say, this model is beautifully made. Look at this. Look at those curves. Look at the texture. Holy crap. Oh, hold on. This thing does get a cockpit, doesn't it? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Okay, that's... What's that even supposed to mean? So the resolution to the back is not that great. It seems like you could actually fit a passenger in the back, although... none of the things in the back are done. Ooh. Oh god, that's actually kind of scary, seeing the propeller rotate that close to your head. But let's take a look at the cockpit itself. Now, satellite cockpit doesn't seem to be all that finished, to be honest. It's kind of really pixelated, and half of the... what's it called? What are these things even called? Oh god, what are these things called? This is what I hate this. I hate this when I think of a word, but I cannot remember it in English. I actually don't even know what it's called. Anzeige in German, maybe? The instruments, yes, the instruments. Half of the instruments are missing, which is kind of weird. But at least the instruments that are present do have a nice resolution, so you can indeed use this thing in sim mode. Now, do keep in mind, this thing is player-made. This thing was made by the community, which means that every time you buy one of these beauties, part of the revenue is going to go towards the creators of this model. Now, I would expect this to be a heavy fight, and I don't expect this thing to be very much of a turn, but at least the climb rate is surprisingly good, especially for a 4.0 aircraft. I mean, the engines are quite powerful. Currently with the weapon able, they have only over 1,400 horsepower each. But still, this thing climbs very well. I mean, I'm at 15 degrees. Okay, technically the aircraft itself is only at around 11 degrees, but still, it's not losing all that much speed. This thing is very good at climbing. Also seems to have a very nice top speed of around 650 km per hour, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 660 km per hour at 6,700 meters. Now it's supposed to this thing to perform better at high altitudes than at low altitudes, but thankfully it doesn't seem to have too much of a trouble of even getting up to altitude. Oh my god. So I'm currently on the subreddit for Warfare, and I was on my AFK clubbing, and I spotted a very interesting GIF. Early on, when I talked about the Japanese tanks, I showed you the Tier 1 howitzer, 150mm howitzer, which has a lot of penetration and explosive filler. I'm currently seeing a GIF of that thing in action, and it has absolutely ridiculous recoil. Now, I cannot show you the GIF on the stream because I don't want to, well... I mean, I technically could, but I don't want to disrespect the owner. But I'm going to leave a link down in the description down below if you want to see that. It's hilarious. The thing just jumps around everywhere. It might be even worse than the recoil on the M56 Scorpion, and that's saying something, right? Now it seems like the 75mm tank that we showed early on also has a autoloader, which explains the long reload time. Now, this is a topic of discussion. This is something I actually discussed not too long ago with some of my YouTube buddies, like Many Miles Away and SpaceCat, on our Skype group. This could mean bad things. Now, if you don't know what an autoloader is, essentially it's a mechanism that loads a tank, well, by itself. You don't really need the loader to do the work for you. Now, on some later tanks, this actually results in a pretty high fire rate. Especially high caliber autoloaders can have some pretty insane fire rates between each shell. That being said, this is a pretty early type, which apparently is not very fast, if not slower than a regular person at loading. Sadly, we do not have any hard stats on that just yet, but this kind of opens up the discussion on autoloaders in general. Since this might be one of the first autoloaders we are seeing in the game, this could mean that we're going to see more autoloaders in the future. And that's personally not something I want to see, for one simple reason. If these autoloaders do indeed have a higher fire rate than normal loading guns, and depending on how fast they actually do fire, we might have a problem of, well, autoloaders just dominating the meta, really. I mean, let's take a look at top tier, for example. At top tier, especially in RB at least, the tanks that dominate are the fast-firing tanks, since everything has pretty much armor that is nullified by heat FS shells. Whoever fires the fastest is normally the one who wins. Now, imagine if we had a top tier tank firing heat FS with an Autoloader. That thing would kind of dominate top tier battles. Now keep in mind this is completely my opinion. You guys might have your difference. And in fact, if you do have a different opinion on that, do leave it in the comment section down below. I always like seeing the discussions that you guys have. But Autoloaders kind of scare me. Now on one side this could mean the introduction of French tanks, for example, in the future, which would be something quite interesting to see. At the same time, I find it would be kind of hard to balance this. Oh god. I almost crashed into my teammate there. This thing is bloody fast. Did you see that? We reached 700 kilometers per hour in that dive. God damn. And of course the 30s have no problem dealing with these biplanes. Now of course they are simple biplanes. Tier 1 is not exactly the representation of what you're going to face, especially if you're going to face off against players. We seem to be in a bot-only match right now, but still, 30s are nice. It's against Aicraft. By the way, I'm still salty they removed the ability for us to shoot their tanks with the 30s. It was so nice. But yeah, Autoloaders. I don't know what to think really. I'm scared. I'm scared. Now I did the era when ATGMs were first talked about of underestimating the ATGM. And of course we get a spark against a biplane with the 30mm cannon, because why the fuck not? I underestimated ATGMs when they were first introduced. I didn't really understand the concept of them being able to fire from cover. And of course these cannot fire from cover. These are not ATGMs. But still, they have an insane damage per second potential, and especially in a game like Warfare, the way a single shot can kill you, or at least if not kill you, it can massively cripple you, to the point that you cannot return fire and you're essentially as good as dead. Autoloaders are a dangerous tool. Autoloaders are a very dangerous tool. Now of course they do have the disadvantage of once their clip is gone, they're going to go for a very lengthy reload phase, as we saw on the Type 5 Cheery 2. Up to 32 seconds. Yep, 32 seconds to reload the clip. But since in Warfare you can simply hide in that time period, especially if you're on RB. So a good player is not going to be too troubled about that. At the same time, a good player is going to be... Oh, come on, don't give me sparks. A good player is going to be able to absolutely dominate, really, with the autoloading capabilities. So again, guys, tell me in the comment section down below what you think about Autoloader. Do you think it's a good introduction? I'm scared. I am honestly scared about Autoloaders, but the future will have to tell. Now, overall, I have to say, this thing is actually quite maneuverable. We are playing RB indeed, and... Okay, now of course this isn't a true realistic representation. I do realize that. We are turn fighting against bots. Okay, sure. But at least what I can see, this thing is actually quite maneuverable. The roller isn't all that bad. It has a really good top speed, it has a really good dive speed, it climbs pretty well. The cannons are absolutely deadly at this tier. I mean, this is a 4.0 aircraft. If it stays at 4.0, of course, but it is only a tier 3 aircraft, tier 3 premium. It seems to be a very good aircraft. And a very good interceptor. This thing might be what's the best answer the Germans have to bomber hunting. Oh, by the way, something I forgot to mention. Guys, finally they added the option to install the 20mm cannons on the Bf-109K4. Oh god, I am so glad of that. Now I've tried for the longest time to grind out through the K4, my K4 is pretty much completely stuck. And oh god, the 103 on that thing, the 108 actually. The 108 on this thing is so frustrating. Oh god, you can barely kill anything. And the Aicraft itself when it's stuck is barely usable as well. So the stock grind on the thing was really awful. But now that you have the option to finally install the 20mm and replace the 30mm on the nose, it might be a more competitive aircraft. We'll have to see how it goes. And there goes your elevator. Oh, that's a nice one. That's a nice stall. But guys, I think I'm going to round this up for here. This has pretty much been all of the German introductions. There are of course a couple of more introductions that I cannot really show you because I don't have enough golden eagles to unlock them all. But yeah, it seems like we're going to see Japanese tanks introduced. We have a couple of new tanks for the Russians. We have the Object 906, which is essentially a PT-76 but with an 85mm cannon. The same one as featured on the ASU 85. We have the ZIS-43, which is a 37mm SPA, which you saw in the dev blocks. Oh, the users are also getting a Tu-14, which is essentially a similar aircraft to the IL-28. It's a jet bomber that can actually drop torpedoes, although the torpedo drop speed is around 300 km per hour, 370 km per hour, if I'm not mistaken, so it kind of defeats the purpose of a torpedo bomber. We are seeing a new British bomber, the Hampden, which is also going to be featured in the Russian tech tree as a premium. We have a new Sunderland. We have a new model for the Hellcat in the British tech tree. We have a new models for the Spitfire Mark 1A and Mark 2. As I said before, we have the HE100 and the Ta-154 and the AJ88C6A for the Germans. And a couple new aircraft for the Japanese, which I already went over. There seem to be 2 new maps as well, with the 38th parallel, new location for combined battles, and abandoned factory. But I'm not going to read off the dev blog for you, I'll leave a link down in the description down below if you want to see that. I'll leave a link to the GIF as well. And yeah, when the patch drops live and when the next dev server comes live and we get a better look at new vehicles that are still yet to be announced, especially the 84. Oh my god, I fucking want the 84 so bad. And hopefully I'll get access to the Japanese tanks by then as well. I'm going to cover you guys with some more content. But until then, don't forget to like this video if you did, subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll see you in the next one. My name's been MikeGoesBoom. Thanks for watching.
You can lift your head up to the sky, take a deeper breath and give it time. You can walk the path among the lines, with your shattered frame of mind. Or instead you could always stay, we can wait right here and play, until somehow you can find